Last time on Top 17 Favorite Pokemon. The Pokemon are awesome. That's yada 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 bing bong boop. Rampardos, be badass. Shit. Porygon Z. It's Porygon Z. New Gen 1ers freaking perfect. Is freaking huge. Scizor, the badass. Oh, fecking awesome. Arcanine. That's fecking awesome. Okay, yeah, I think you get the idea. So let's just move on. Oh, hell yeah! Kicking off the top 10 is none other than the ruler of the Distortion World and the master of all antimatter, Giratina. I'm gonna give it to you straight, I love this Pokemon. First, his typing. Giratina is currently the only Ghost Dragon type in existence, which is a very good thing as that means his typing is incredibly unique. He is also one of the coolest looking legendary Pokemon I have ever seen. He looks like he has an armored head and he has somewhat of a menacing appearance, in both forms. Speaking of which, that is a topic that cannot go undiscussed. Giratina has two forms, Altered and Origin. Giratina can change his forms with his own item, the Gliscor. When holding it, he will go into his main form, which is his Origin form, which is his more offensive form. Both Giratina's base attack stats are base 120, meaning that he can be very good as a mixed attacker. When he's not holding it, however, he goes into his altered form, which is more defensive but slightly less offensive. I love using both of these forms as there are so many options between the two. So far, Giratina still has the highest HP of all legendary Pokemon, being a base 150. This means that he will be fighting for a while. In short, Giratina is my favorite ghost type, and for very good reasons. I bet you guys are all wondering what my favorite dragon type is. After all, the dragon type is my favorite type. So, here it is. For number 9, we have Haxorus. What I find weird about this guy is that he doesn't come up on many top 10 favorites. Well, it's time to change that. I'll put Haxorus on for what he really is. A deadly, badass, and awesome Pokemon. First off, his design. To be honest, when I first saw him, it was from the back of him when I was looking at the intro to Black and White. I almost thought that he was a bug type, but no, he is actually a dragon type, and a damn cool one at that. He is one of the coolest Pokemon I have ever seen, with his intimidating appearance and axe-like jaw. With a jaw like that, you would expect him to be a physical attacker. He is, and one of the best in that category. His attack stat rivals all the physical attacking legendary dragons, getting to a maximum of 432. That is just ridiculous. He also has speed that outranks even Rayquaza's, getting to a maximum of 322. Not the best, but you can easily give it a Dragon Dance boost to destroy everything. His abilities are Mold Breaker, which I already discussed when talking about Rampardos, Rivalry, which increases his power when fighting a Pokemon of the same gender, but decreases it when fighting an opponent of the opposite gender, unfortunately, and Unnerve, which prevents the opponents from using their berry. These abilities are all pretty useful. Also, Haxorus has one of the coolest Pokemon names I've ever heard. Haxorus. Just saying it makes you feel cool. Overall, Haxorus, in my opinion, is a pretty underrated Pokemon. He's cool, strong, and an absolute monster of a Pokemon. Well, it's about time Generation 3 got some praise. Because at number 8, we have arguably the most kick-ass starter Pokemon ever, Sceptile. As you can guess, Sceptile is my favorite grass type, and I have some reasons. 1. Sceptile is easily the coolest grass type I have ever seen, with those blades on his arms, that stare of his, and just overall appearance in general. 2. Sceptile is a very good Pokemon for sweeping your opponents, one reason being his speed, which is his greatest stat. Sceptile's speed can get as high as 372, meaning that he is the fastest grass type in existence. Sceptile also has a lot of power to back up that speed. His special attack can get as high as 339, meaning that he can be very useful as a heavy hitter. Personally, I prefer to run a Sword Stance set as it works with his somewhat middling attack, turning it into an absolute monstrous stat. I also have to mention, Sceptile can learn a ton of moves, ranging from moves like Focus Blast, Acrobatics, Crunch, Dragon Pulse, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and so much more. This means Sceptile has more coverage than any other grass type. In my opinion, Sceptile just puts every single grass type into the ground. I also have to mention that those blades on his arms was how Leaf Blade became to be a move, and one of the best offensive grass type moves in general. It started out as a signature move, but in Generation 4 it got more power and was no longer a signature move. That's not exactly important though. I also like how in the anime he was always a calm Pokemon. In a nutshell, Sceptile is a feckin' ninja. He is easily my favorite grass type as well as my favorite starter Pokemon, with Blastoise close behind. I've talked about this guy for a while. Let's move on. Another Generation 4 Pokemon? Well, yep. If you're getting tired of seeing all these Generation 4 Pokemon, then just stop watching, because Generation 4 has my favorite collection of Pokemon by far. The one in question this time is Weavile. Weavile is easily my favorite Ice type. First off, Weavile has a very devious appearance. It just looks like he's always up to no good, but then again, he is a thief. Also, those claws of his just look really cool. As you can imagine, these claws are Weavile's main weapons. Weavile's attack can get as high as 372, and his speed can get as high as 383, meaning that not only is he a very good sweeper, but he is also the fastest Ice type, and rivals Darkrai for being the fastest Dark type. That there is just plain ridiculous. To be honest, I don't have all that much to say about Weavile, but all I can say is that Weavile is just awesome. You should get one if you want a good sweeper, as well as being a good Dragon Slayer. Hey, that's what I nicknamed mine. What is this? Can this be... Is this a joke? Did you show the wrong number? Nope, this is all true. Gliscor is only number 6. Yep. Well, if some of you are confused about why I said all that, I'll tell you. At one point, Gliscor was actually my favorite Pokemon of all time. But considering that I can't stick with one thought for very long, I've changed my opinion, as you can probably see. While he's not my favorite Pokemon anymore, that doesn't mean Gliscor has lost any luster in my eyes in the slightest. First off, his appearance. One reason that Gliscor used to be my favorite was because he is one of the downright coolest Pokemon I've ever seen. With those wings, the pincers, his color, and even his face. I don't know, I just think that way. I have to agree with Fawful's minion on something here. Gliscor looks like a cross between a vampire, a gargoyle, and a scorpion. So, does that really make him a Scampoil? Yet before you ask, I am totally insane. Moving on to battle capabilities. Gliscor is extremely useful. His attack and speed can both get as high as 317. That's pretty good, actually. But, Gliscor's main focus and power isn't actually offense, but defense. His defense can get as high as 383, meaning that he can be a very good physical wall, especially with a Toxic Orb and his hidden ability Poison Heal. This is another reason why Gliscor is so awesome. Much like Giratina, he can be used in so many ways. While Gliscor isn't my all-time favorite anymore, he is still my favorite ground type and one of my favorite Pokemon from Generation 4. I bet you guys wanted to see more Gen 3 Pokemon on the list. In fairness, I haven't given Generation 3 enough praise already. Well, at number 5, we have my favorite pure Psychic type, Deoxys. Okay, let's face it, Deoxys is the most ingenious Pokemon I have ever seen. First off, Deoxys is actually based off of DNA, which is basically our genetic compound. Well, that concept can only be summed up in one word. Genius! Basing a legendary alien off of our own genetic compound is one of the best Pokemon ideas that Game Freak has ever come up with. Also, Deoxys has 4 different forms, and these 4 forms alter Deoxys' stats completely. Attack Form Deoxys is the definition of a sweeper, as both of his offenses are the highest in the entire franchise, getting to a maximum of 504! That is higher than any Pokemon in the entire game, but I'm sure I've already mentioned that. While his defenses are totally abysmal in this form, he still has the ridiculous speed from his normal form, so he can wreak some havoc before going down. Speed form Deoxys is the fast Pokemon ever, with his speed reaching a maximum of 504. And defense form is one of the best walls you can have. His defenses aren't exactly shuffle standards, but he has more defense and special defense than any psychic type ever, with both defenses getting as high as 460. This thing outclasses even Lugia! This form actually happens to be the most balanced of his forms. Normal form Deoxys is supposed to be, but in my opinion, he's nothing more than a less offensive, slightly more defensive attack form Deoxys, at least in terms of statistics. However, there is something funny to know about his form names, because if you put the first letter of his form names in the correct order, you will see that it spells DNAs. That is just clever. If you put it in a different order, however, you'll get this result. I'm not gonna lie, I laughed the first time I saw that. In short, Deoxys is a powerful, unique, cool, and generally awesome Pokemon. My favorite Generation 3 Pokemon, and my favorite pure Psychic type. Remember how in part 1, when I showed a picture of Gallade when I said that there are Pokemon that look awesome and kick ass in battle? Well, guess what? He's number 4 on this list. The noble, valiant Master Swordsman of Sinnoh himself, Gallade. Gallade is hands down my favorite fighting type. In my opinion, anyone should have a Gallade in their collection of Pokemon. When evolving a male Kirlia, you have two choices. Gardevoir, which is a hard-hitting special attacker, and its feminine look makes no sense for a male Pokemon. Or you can give it a Dawnstone to evolve it into the Swordsman Gallade, a badass, hard-hitting physical attacker with a much wider move pool. Which would you pick? No, seriously, I'm curious. What's your preference? Well, as you pretty much guessed already, mine is Gallade. I'm gonna explain why because, well, if he's on the list I have to explain. Well, back to when I was discussing Scizor. You know how I said that he was one of the coolest Pokemon in existence? Well, this Pokemon just kills the entire competition with his Spartan helmet-like head, the swords on his arms, and just how he appears. In other words, he's the coolest Pokemon I've ever seen. Even though Gallade is a swordsman with great power, he uses that power to protect Pokemon with no means of standing up for themselves. In my opinion, if Gallade had a vocation in Dragon Quest IX, I would say he'd be a paladin, but an omnivocational swordsmaster, as paladins for some reason don't wield swords in that game. Wait, what? Next, battle capabilities. While Gallade is a physically offensive Gardevoir, he has a much better move pool. Including move tutor moves, he can have coverage for 14 of the 17 types. Gallade also has access to a move that doubles his attack rather than slightly increasing it. Yeah, it's Swords Dance, what a surprise. In short, if you don't have a Gallade yet, your collection is not complete. Just get one! A lot of you have been wondering this whole time what my favorite bug type is. After all, I brought up a lot of bug types in part 1, namely Scolipede, Scizor, Durant, you know. Well, here's the next entry. My favorite bug type and the number 3 spot is none other than the Sun God of Generation 5, Volcarona. Okay, be honest with me. You all saw this coming. But did you expect him to be this high? Well, tell me in the comments. Anyways, first off, Volcarona has a very unique typing that is only shared with its pre-evolution. Judging by his appearance alone, Volcarona is a bug fire type. I can't tell you how long I've wanted one of these for. And as I said, Volcarona is a sun god. That's right, that's his concept. He is a solar deity reincarnated as an Atlas moth. That concept is almost as ingenious as the concept for Deoxys. You know what? I can't believe that you Generation 1 fans are calling Gen 5 unoriginal and the worst generation of Pokemon. This is the type of concept and design that your precious Generation 1 can only dream of having. Moving on to stats. Judging from every other moth Pokemon in existence aside from Venomoth, which is actually very awesome by the way, you would think Volcarona is just for show and his stats would be crap. You couldn't be any more wrong. Sure, his HP is only decent and his attack and defense are utterly shameful. His stats scream Special Sweeper. By that I mean his highest stats are Special Attack, which can get as high as 405, the highest of all bug types, His special defense can get as high as 339, and his speed can get as high as 328. For a bug type, that is just mad. Also, to complement Volcarona's ridiculous stats, he also gets access to Quiver Dance, which boosts his special attack, special defense, and speed. Combine that with Volcarona's powerhouse of a special move pool. If a Volcarona sets up one single Quiver Dance, you're done for. This has happened to me so many times. Also, he has his own signature move, which also helps to set up and complements his ridiculous special attack, Fiery Dance. This move deals damage and has a 50% chance of raising your special attack. I could talk about this Pokemon all day, but to end it off, I will just say this. Volcarona is just a stunning Pokemon. It has a great design, awesome concept, fantastic stats, and is just brilliant in general. Volcarona is not only my favorite bug type, but it's also my favorite Pokemon in Generation 5. Well, it's about time my favorite water type came up. At number 2, we have arguably one of the best water types ever, Kingdra. I bet you're all surprised to see this Pokemon surpass Volcarona, or even come up this high on the list for that matter. Well, I have my reasons, just like with every other Pokemon on the list. I could go on for ages about this Pokemon, but I will just go on for about a minute or so. First off, I love how Kingdra looks. I can't say why, but there's just something about how he looks. It's kind of like an elegant dragon or something. Well, he is a dragon type, but whatever. The first time I saw Kingdra was when I battled Lance in the rematch in Leaf Green, which, by the way, was my first Pokemon game, so I did grow up with Generation 1. As soon as I saw it, I just said out loud, "That Pokemon will be mine someday." But unfortunately, I had no way of getting it. But then, Gen 4 came along and I figured out how to get Kingdra. Once I got one, I instantly used it, and I used it all the feckin' time. Let me tell you, he did not disappoint. Let's talk about how Kingdra fares in battle then. Kingdra is quite possibly the most well-balanced water and dragon type ever. Aside from HP and speed, which are both base 85, his stats are all base 95 across the board. This means you can make Kingdra anything you want. He can be a tank, a sweeper, a heavy hitter, anything that suits your style, just like Mew. Kingdra can actually be very good as a sweeper. For being physical, he can learn Dragon Dance. Unlike most dragons, he has the type, which only gives him one weakness by the way, and the defenses to pull it off. Or for special, he can be on a Rain Dance team as he has Swift Swim, and he can learn a lot of powerful moves to help with that, such as Hydro Pump, Dragon Pulse, Ice Beam, and so on. For a Dragon Dance set, I give him the Sniper ability that doubles his critical hit ratio. I think it's doubles anyway. But for the special set, I just give him Swift Swim considering I have no choice. There's just one more thing I can say about Kingdra. He is an absolutely awesome water type. He is good, I can't even describe him anymore. I lost my train of thought, I've run out of things to say. But, you're all wondering what number 1 is. You've all noticed that the type I haven't mentioned yet is Dark. Since you know the type, we can move straight on. My favorite Pokemon? That will be a mystery until number 1 comes up. Okay, enough prolonging, let's go on. Okay, I think you've already guessed by my intro and my channel background, so I won't bother with much of an introduction. So here it is. My favorite Pokemon is Darkrai. That's right, my favorite Pokemon also happens to be the favorite of Fawful's minion. In fact, he actually changed my outlook on Darkrai completely. So, it's time for my own thoughts. First off, to put it bluntly, his concept basically means that he is the Freddy Krueger of the Pokemon series. Just his presence will give any sleeping organism nightmares. And this series is rated Peggy 3. Peggy 3, my ass! That is actually a pretty scary concept right there. Although it's nothing compared to soul-eating chandeliers, but anyways. Next, his battle capabilities. Darkrai is a force of nature in battle. His special attack can get as high as 405, which rivals Porygon Z and Volcarona. And like I said earlier, his speed rivals Weavile for being the fastest dark type ever. His speed can get to a maximum of 383. Also, Darkrai can boost his special attack even further with Nasty Plot, and thanks to his signature move, Dark Void, this means he can be a very successful sweeper. Dark Void is a move that puts all Pokemon on the opposing side to sleep. But wait, there's more. Darkrai's ability. Darkrai is the only Pokemon with the ability Bad Dreams. This ability sucks away 12.5% of any sleeping opponent on the battlefield. That is just freaking awesome! This means that if your Pokemon fall asleep, they are pretty much worthless this time, as Darkrai will more than likely finish them off with the ability and his power before they wake up. Darkrai also has a very large move pool, ranging from moves like Ominous Wind, Nightmare, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Focus Blast, and much, much more. He also plays a role in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon too. I won't spoil anything for people who haven't played it yet, so don't worry about that. Lastly, the main reason why Darkrai is my favourite Pokemon, as well as the reason why Darkrai is just so loved in general. It was the role he played in the 10th movie, The Rise of Darkrai. Darkrai was considered an evil Pokemon by everybody in Alamos Town and tried to drive him out. Darkrai, however, meant no harm to anybody at all. When he came to Alamos Town's garden, he was injured by all the Pokemon who considered him a threat. Alice's grandmother, Alicia, decided to help him out. After healing him, he was welcomed into the garden. But nobody knew about this in the town and just attacked Darkrai years later. But then Darkrai shows how much he really cares about the town, because when he tries to stop Dialga and Palkia from fighting, as it was causing the town to collapse, and pretty much all existence, he risked everything in order to stop them. In the end, Darkrai ended up sacrificing himself to save the town. That is deep. Even though people hated him, he died trying to save the town and pretty much the rest of the world. And that is why Darkrai is number 1 on this list. Now, all of you can go ahead and say that I rip off Waffle's minion, but you can't change my thoughts no matter what you try. While my thoughts aren't extremely deep, I still agree completely with him. To conclude this list, I am the Fabulous Fiend, and Darkrai is my favourite Pokemon ever. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.